a $100,000 heist, demand by design, and an homage to another brand etched in glass. The Eagle Rare reputation certainly lives up to its name, but what's the whole truth behind this complex 10-year bourbon? Keep watching to find out. Eagle Rare has not always been its reasonable 90-proof recipe. When the bourbon debuted, it pushed the limits of what can legally be called bourbon and was much more alcoholic. According to Gentleman Ranters, whiskey consumption went seriously downhill in the 1960s and 1970s. Production was still at its usual level, but fewer people were buying whiskey. At the time, Charles Beam, the master distiller at Seagram's, saw the ominous trend and recognized that the decrease in the output was actually a hidden opportunity. This downturn meant that Seagram's could increase its ability to put out more prized and pricier aged products. So, in 1975, Seagram launched Eagle Rare 10-Year as a 101 proof whiskey. If you're a bourbon fan and notice some similarities between this and another avian-themed whiskey, that is no coincidence. Eagle Rare created its 101 proof selection to be an homage to, or some might say a direct competitor of, the equally potent and often beginner-friendly Wild Turkey. And no, we're not saying Matthew McConaughey is a beginner. The alcohol content of Eagle Rare is not the only thing that's changed over time. When it comes to whiskey, it's not always the physical ingredients that make the difference in taste. The process itself can dramatically affect the final product, as is the case for Eagle Rare. In 1989, the Sazerac Company purchased 7 brands, including Eagle Rare. Significantly, in 1992, Sazerac also acquired Buffalo Trace Distillery. According to Gentleman Ranters, in 2005, the brand discontinued the 101 proof version of Eagle Rare whiskey in favour of the 90 proof version we know today. In 2012, after the brand took on a series of significant updates to the facilities, the 10-year age statement was removed from the name. What's more, the single barrel signifier was removed from the bottle entirely. The new bottle processing equipment meant it was now possible to continue to fill a bottle by moving onto a new barrel mid-fill, increasing efficiency but also potentially melding the unique flavours of individual barrels within one bottle.
Anybody else want a whiskey?
Yeah.
One of the advantages of the many changes Eagle Rare has undergone is that arguably consumers ended up with a better and more drinkable whiskey. Strong 101 proof bourbons can be quite cutting due to the high alcohol content for one. Meanwhile, as the whiskey wash notes, multi-barrel blended bourbons tend to rely on the mixing process to mellow out unappealing or harsh flavours that can turn off some consumers. While Eagle Rare is no longer technically a single barrel, it is at most a 2-barrel blend. This means it still must rely on a smoother and better ferment for the product. As Eagle Rare is not a rye-heavy whiskey, it's not as spicy as those whiskey varieties. What it lacks in that sort of flavour is made up in the complexity of the final product. According to the Eagle Rare website, the 10-year bourbon is bold and dry with a lingering taste. It has a nose of toffee, orange peel, herbs, honey, leather, and oak. The taste is oaky, enhanced with candied nuts and cocoa. Whiskey reviewer The Whiskey Wash agrees with these flavour notes and also notes the bourbon's smooth and rich flavour. When it comes to making whiskey, everything starts with the ingredients. When it comes to the building blocks of bourbon, it's no accident that Kentucky became the bourbon capital of the United States. According to Farm Flavor, Kentucky's agriculture facilitated the growth of quality grains such as the corn, rye, and barley used to make Eagle Rare. Additionally, Buffalo Trace Distillery's location was chosen because of the proximity to the Kentucky River, which provides the distillery with limestone filtered water the company uses to create some of its whiskies. Eagle Rare is aged for at least 10 years in American oak barrels. After this aging process, the whiskies are then filtered to pull out the debris from the barrel and leave the drinker with a clean, more palatable spirit. When it comes time to filter out the impurities, Eagle Rare utilizes a chill filter process. In a chill filter process, as Whiskey Advocate reports, the whiskey is cooled and then run through a filter system. This process removes chemical impurities that can cause the whiskey to be cloudy, leaving you with a clearer bourbon in the bottle.
Well, now that ain't even the right color.
Quiet, boy. Color.
We are not in the business of telling people how to drink whiskey, but we would be remiss if we did not encourage proper drinking etiquette regarding a fine whiskey. Eagle Rare may not be top shelf, but it does not sit at the bottom either. It comes at a not insignificant price, and with the bourbon's smooth flavour, is not necessarily the whiskey you want to dilute or muddle with a mixer in a cocktail. Of course, Eagle Rare has its own view on the topic. Liquor.com recommends you enjoy Eagle Rare straight, or perhaps simply on the rocks with some ice. Those who need a more mellow experience may also find that this bourbon, like so many other whiskies, is more drinkable mixed with water to open up the bourbon and dilute its harsher qualities. According to the Whiskey Shelf, the Eagle Rare website once stated the whiskey could be served neat or over ice. They also wrote that Eagle Rare could be used in bourbon-based cocktails such as a Manhattan or whiskey sour. However, the company's page no longer makes drinking suggestions, and we suspect they will be happy with however you choose to enjoy their product. Understanding the price point of Eagle Rare can get a little confusing. As with many of the Buffalo Trace brands, Eagle Rare can be hard to find outside of the distillery, and therefore, when it is for sale, it may end up selling for well over the company's suggested sale price. According to Gentleman Ranters, Eagle Rare's manufacturer's suggested retail price, or MSRP, is set at about $30. This puts it roughly in the range of a standard or mid-shelf bourbon. However, as noted, the MSRP is not the actual price you might pay for this bourbon. At liquor marketplace Drizzly, a bottle of Eagle Rare will cost nearly $90, and that's before shipping. You may wonder then if Eagle Rare is really worth the hit on your wallet. Only you can judge, though fans will certainly argue in its favour. You may, however, want to keep an eye out for it at a local store, unless you can take the cost of shipping. At the price point often seen for a bottle of Eagle Rare, it's clear there's a greater demand for the bourbon than there is supply. So finding bottles of this stuff can be difficult even for the most dedicated of searchers. But why is that? For one, as Gear Patrol notes, Eagle Rare has been designed to create a supply-demand market in its favour by only releasing a limited number of products to distributors at any given time. This is not new or even unique to Eagle Rare though. There is a whole market for what are called allocated bourbons that use the same tactic to boost demand, according to Wine Enthusiast. But this is not a ploy by Eagle Rare to make you pay more than you should for its bourbon. Gentleman Ranters notes that the company hasn't raised the price and has stated they do not intend to do so.
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation. You drink for the wrong reasons. My generation, we drink because it's good.
However, by distributing Eagle Rare as an allocated liquor, the distributors know they can charge super premium fees for bottles. Ramping up production would be one way of fixing this, but we doubt the company will do that as they do not want to reduce the quality of their fine bourbons or potentially take a hit to profits. Eagle Rare is made by Buffalo Trace Distillery, which produces several quality bourbons under different names and at different price points. So how does Eagle Rare compare to some of its sister brands? As per Bourboner, the distillery uses two main mash bills for their bourbon, simply called number 1 and number 2. And two specialty mashed bills, a wheated and a rye. While popular and coveted brands such as Blanton's use mash bill number 2, Eagle Rare shares its mash with brands like E.H. Taylor Jr. and the flagship and namesake bourbon of the distillery, Buffalo Trace. Whereas Eagle Rare is aged for 10 years and has strong notes of things like cocoa and spices, E.H. Taylor Jr. is thought to be aged for about 7 and is generally considered more peppery and with notes of vanilla, according to Whiskey and Whiskey. While some may prefer the more expensive and notoriously difficult to find Blanton's, others argue that E.H. Taylor Jr. is a comparable whiskey for a lot less. Eagle Rare and Buffalo Trace make for an interesting matchup. Both labels use the same mash bill and are even made in the same place. Moreover, since Eagle Rare is no longer a single barrel, neither of them is. There are also some key differences between these two sister brands. Both Eagle Rare and Buffalo Trace are thought to be aged for around the same length of time, 10 years, according to Whiskey Watch. Buffalo Trace is typically priced above Eagle Rare. If you want to try it, you may find that Buffalo Trace is smooth with notes of brown sugar and anise. It is clear that while the two are different, you would probably not go wrong with a bottle of either. The Eagle Rare bottle design has changed over the years. For example, while the Eagle Rare 10-year is still commonly referred to with the age statement in its name, it is no longer printed with that claim on the front of the bottle. Instead, the age statement is now found on the back of the bottle. On the front of the bottle, however, the name appears simply as Eagle Rare. This design is distinct from the label's other varieties, the 17-year and Double Eagle Very Rare. According to the Gentleman Ranter's review of Eagle Rare, brand design was originally meant to play homage to Wild Turkey Bourbon. Keeping with the similar bird theme, the Eagle Rare bottles includes the brand's namesake eagle. The image of the majestic bird swooping down toward water adorns the front below the words Eagle Rare and the assurance that the bottle contains Kentucky straight bourbon. The bottle is clear, allowing the amber colours to contrast with the white ink printed on the glass without the addition of a cumbersome label.
Okay, 10 seconds.
Here we go.
Leave the jewels and stacks of dollar bills to the movies, as Eagle Rare was once involved in a serious real-life heist. Gilbert Kurtzinger was an employee behind the gates of Buffalo Trace when he and 8 other individuals worked together to take stock from the distillery and sell the stolen product for a hefty price. Over the course of 7 years, they managed to steal 28 bottles of Pappy Van Winkle, which can now sell for over $1,400 per bottle per drizzly. The group also managed to steal 20 barrels of Eagle Rare, with the overall haul totaling over $100,000 in bourbon, according to the drinks business. One particular barrel of Eagle Rare was even valued for over $10,000 at the time. The group went undetected until 2013, when the missing cases began to be noticed and an inquiry was made. Still, the culprits weren't caught for 2 more years. After a tip in 2015, police identified Kurtzinger as the main culprit, ultimately finding 5 barrels of wild turkey in his possession. He was arrested for the theft.
Well, actually, I do have this bourbon that I brewed myself. It'll either be the best thing you ever had or the last thing you'll ever have.